Okay.
Okay, cross tools. Good.
This is the brake wear warning light system. From 66 on.
That's great.
There is it's just an embedded wire in the friction material, and when it wears down to about 1/8 of an inch, it contacts the disc, closes the ground, and turns on a big red warning light on the dash to let you know that the front brake pads are about worn out. Because we have to get underneath the car at this point and disconnect the bracket that holds that's attached from the pan to the downpipe. DS models, you have a two-piece manifold that comes down and comes like this, and there's a mating face that goes to the downpipe, and they sandwich together, and there's 4 bolts that hold it together. I'm not sure which one is easier, but okay, we've got the front engine mount bolts removed on this crossbar. Now I'm going to remove the bolts that hold the rear engine mounts to the supports that are welded to the frame. And to do that, you need a long 3/8 extension and a swivel joint on the end to hold your socket because of the access on the driver's side of the engine. So all you have to do is you have to sort of get down in here, get it in place, and remove it and take them out. Because the engine mount is going to stay on the engine as it comes out of the car. We're not going to try to remove it from the post. The other, a really nice other piece of equipment or a tool to have is one of these, which is a expandable magnet, telescoping magnet, and it allows you to get nuts and whatnot that you've dropped, and also to pull them up from places it's hard to get your hand into, like I'm doing right now. And it brought up everything without losing it. And this is the nut and keeper that go on to the one of the 2 nuts that holds the base of the engine mount in place on the frame. That's what was causing that thing to not go on. Somebody covered this thing up with silicone glue. God. Yeah, here's the reason your engine's out of whack, Andy. Take a look down here. It shouldn't be offset like that. In other words, that mount should be front and back should be about dead center in the slot. So if you think your engine's been shoved that way,
yeah,
that's why.
In the back, yeah.
Yeah, that's why.
I don't know if it's been mismounted or if it just worked its way over.
Yeah, somebody put it in there and didn't. No, it hasn't been mismounted. Somebody put it in there and didn't check it.
Okay.
I just removed the bolts that hold the engine mounts to the support plates that are welded to the firewall. As soon as we disconnect the 2 hydraulic lines for the brakes, we can actually start to lift the engine, because we need to lift the engine maybe about a foot, and then reach down alongside here and disconnect the return line for the hydraulic system from the pressure regulator. And then we need to lift very carefully and make sure we haven't missed anything, and we should just then be able to lift the engine right out of the car. Here is the...
That's going to you.
No, that one's
That
going
goes
to
the
here.
tank.
Hold on a second. Wait a minute. Hold on a second.
That one goes back.
Yeah, this one right here is the one that I just loosened.
Okay.
So that one's loose. We need to bend this back like this and put it right there. And then we have one more, which is coming right here, and we need to loosen that. We need to loosen this up.
Okay.
So that's a 12. Hang on a second. We need to take that off first.
It's enough to do this job, and then to clean everything and freshen it up. Makes it double.
Hold on a second. Okay, we want to come forward now. You know, it just might be simpler because it's already, this thing is completely loose. It just might be simpler just to disconnect it here off of the unit.
Take the hydraulic
Take the
line loose?
yeah, take the
Oh, yeah.
hydraulic line loose. Okay, go towards you. Pull back on it. Keep going.
I'm trying to keep it from going bounce.
Okay, we're good. We're good.
Yeah, there's the ass end of the thing. Still
Well-
gotta clear the bumper.
Yeah, I know. Okay, we're gonna run right over cords, so we need to get rid of that. Okay, this is where you want to put it?
Not really.
Where do you want to put it?
I don't know.
This is the engine transmission component out of a ID19. We've removed it this morning. I think total amount of time, what time is it, Andy? 2 o'clock. I think total amount of time we spent on this and actual working was about 3 hours. But I have to be honest, Andy did a lot of prep work in taking the fenders off and taking out the radiator. The ID19s and the DS 21s that have the manual shift are a lot easier to remove an engine from than the ones with the BVH system or the Citroen system. But basically, you remove the fenders, you remove the radiator, you disconnect the power steering, you disconnect the hydraulic lines, you disconnect the emergency brake cable and the clutch cable, and then the real trick to doing this is using a universal joint and a long extension. You remove the bolts that hold the rear suspension mounts to the frame. You don't try to you don't leave these on the car. You take them off with the engine. And then once that's done, along with these, the 6 bolts that hold the front engine mount, the front engine support onto the frame, you just basically very carefully lift the engine up and slide it back and lift and slide. It helps to have 2 people to do it, but if you know what you're doing, one person can do it just as easily. And then once the engine is out, then you strip it. It makes it a lot simpler than trying to take everything off in the car, because now you have clear access to everything. Plus you can also check all your lines, your return hoses. As we have found, there were a lot of things that need to be replaced on this car. And it's a lot easier to do this when the whole thing is out as a package than it is if you try to leave stuff in the car and work on it piecemeal. Thank God somebody here was helping me do this.
No, do not try this without adult supervision. Believe me, and a Citroen adult. Yeah, and there is a whole bunch of stuff that's loose, bent, broken, missing, nuts, bolts, and things that have been disincluded over the years, either by wear and tear and fall, or sloppy mechanical work that somebody's done, and they just didn't care. You know, rush job, and so we're going to nurse this back together, trying to make it stock, original, factory, the way it should have been. And that, in theory, it should run right then.
The major reason this all came apart was that due to clutch slippage, and we're going to put in a rebuilt clutch disc. We're going to check we're going to put in new seals on the camshaft. Andy's going to go through and clean everything up, and when it goes back together, it's going to look like probably just like it's a brand new package, and it should operate the same way because the engine itself is in great shape. And while we're at it, and this is something you should always do anytime you have the engine out on D, pull this cover off and check the condition of the timing chain and tensioner.
Build them.
Okay. The D Series cars are still considered by most knowledgeable auto engineers as being the most advanced cars, the greatest advance in car design when it was introduced of any automobile ever. Citroen basically threw the rule book out and let their designers and engineers, led by an absolute mad genius by the name of Andre Lefebvre, design a car that was totally unlike anything else in the world. And when it arrived at the Paris Auto Show in 1955, people literally thought the mothership had landed outside the exposition building. I mean, you can imagine, you take a look at this shape right here, which is basically the shape the car had in 1955. This one happens to be a 72. And really the only difference in the body design is the front headlights. And compare that to any other car that you can think of from 1955. And you can understand, begin to appreciate what these people did. The car was incredibly complex mechanically, and it's kind of a shame in a way because Citroen introduced the D, in my own opinion, about 6 years too early. Because it was in the early 60s that DuPont de Nemours came up with the elastomer that made the hydraulic system really reliable. But when the car was launched in 1955, it didn't exist. And so the early cars had a lot of problems with leaks, and they unfortunately developed a bad reputation because of that. But by the mid-60s, that pretty much had been overcome. And by 1975, when the last D rolled off the assembly line in Paris to be replaced by the CX, about 1.3 million cars, a little bit over 1.3 million had been produced.
Time to waste, we fade away as fast as the morning. Miss this time, let's not hesitate. So take my love, my life, my eagle kiss, for time flows on and on.